Welcome. Welcome to the Canbay Consulting Microsoft Licensing webinar. I'm so happy y'all could join us today. I'm Stacy Price. I am a MCP Microsoft Certified Professional in Volume Licensing for large organizations, and I'll be hosting the licensing webinar today. Just as a quick reminder, any questions, please put them in the chat function in Teams. And towards the end of the webinar, I'll address all of those questions. All right. So a few key differentiators of Canbay Consulting, and I want to give an overview of who we are. Canbay Consulting, we've been in business for 8 years, have received many awards in our industry in cloud services, IT staffing. We have a large amount of clients, over 100 plus coast to coast in the U.S., and 450 employees approximately. And we are also considered a hub zone organization. So that's for a lot of our state and local and government customers, it's important to know that we are hub zone authorized. All right. So why is licensing expert still relevant when it comes to Microsoft licensing? If you guys are familiar with the licensing programs at Microsoft, you're in procurement or you're in IT and you manage your licensing procurement, you are very well aware of the changes that have occurred in the licensing over really the last 10 years. And you're going to know that a lot of the requirements, the volume licensing agreement requirements, have been simplified. And the traditional program, licensing program with what Microsoft partners are called an LSP, it's becoming less and less of a requirement to work with a specific type of partner. And again, moving into the cloud, which is a subscription-based offering from Microsoft, has really reduced the need of a large licensing expert, large reseller licensing expert. But why is it still relevant? Because cloud computing is growing and growing, and the subscription types are changing, and requirements based off of users or based off of a tenant, all of the variables are still there. It's just in a different capacity. So as you're working with a Microsoft partner, you still want to make sure that they have a licensing expert or the ability to bring in licensing experts to help you navigate through the Microsoft licensing world. And with Canbay, we act as your existing, an extension of your organization. And with that, we'll help negotiate, support, and escalate questions to Microsoft if needed. And I'm sure if you're familiar with the licensing world as well, you might identify with some of these pain points from a customer side of the business. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you know, the key ones I think that affect your organization the most is, how do I know what I'm purchasing will keep me compliant, or that I'm not over purchasing? So having a partner, Canbay, for example, with a licensing specialist is going to be your advocate and help you ensure that you're compliant and you're not spending over purchasing, over licensing, not buying the product in the best cost-efficient way. We're also here to make sure that you are kept up to date on any of the changes at Microsoft, whether it's a technical change, maybe a licensing structure change. We're going to make sure we keep that communication going, and you're going to be, receiving this information either email, blog, or a webinar like this. And I think a lot of times our customers are noticing that they have software assurance benefits, software assurance through their enterprise agreement, or maybe through their MPSA agreement. A lot of times customers fully don't take advantage of all potential savings with software assurance. And so we're here to make sure we keep track of that, help keep track of that for you, as well as give you the ability and the direction on how to utilize those benefits. And this is just a quick slide. I find it very interesting. It might be the licensing geek side of me, since I've been in the Microsoft licensing world for over 16 years. I think it's rather interesting to see the timeline of Microsoft and how they evolved from the original box product through now to cloud subscriptions and volume licensing. So I'll just start at the beginning. 1999 was when the Select Agreement, which was the official first true volume licensing agreement, was introduced. And through that, you can see it evolved into an EA and then an enterprise agreement, and then different cloud offerings were introduced until now, current, starting in 2016 to now. Microsoft is progressing from traditional licensing model to cloud subscription. Ultimately, what's going to happen is the enterprise agreement and the MPSA agreement, as we know it, will be retired, and a more cloud-friendly licensing structure for large enterprises will be introduced. That information, how exactly they're going to transition, is not available yet, but it's definitely in the starts of it. And here we're just going to give you a high-level overview of the different licensing agreements that are currently available. Now, this is only a few of them. They're more than popular options. There are some additionals, but we're not going to cover those today. Open licensing is a transactional-based purchasing agreement. There's no signature agreement required. There is a minimum purchase requirement on the first order of 5 licenses or 1 server license. It's a 2-year term, but everything has to be paid up front. With the open licensing program, you don't get the ability to purchase licensing, to pay for the licensing over 3 years or a 2-year term. And this can be purchased through any Microsoft licensing partner. It does not have to be a specific LSP or LAR, large account reseller. This, as of in October, Microsoft announced that the open licensing program will be end of life January 1st of 2022, so in a little bit over a year. So what that means is if you are currently purchasing licensing through Open, you will need to start working with a partner to figure out how you're going to transition from the Open licensing program to another offering. So at this time, the other offering will be CSP licensing. That's the Cloud Services Provider. The CSP is a partner like Cambay who can sell all cloud subscriptions through this offering and provide you managed services as a bundled offering. We do have some flexibility with that. We can provide you the subscriptions without managed services for varied prices on the products. It depends on the product. But we do have flexibility, and we can work with you and your organization on what meets your needs best. With CSP, you have the option to purchase the cloud subscription products. Everything on there is a subscription, and it can be paid for on a monthly basis or annual. And if you do purchase Azure, that is billable based off of the usage and the consumption of the products within Azure. And then the final current licensing program is an EA, Enterprise Agreement. At this time, the minimum user requirement is 500 users or seats, devices. However, just announced also by Microsoft, effective January 1 of 2021, so in about a month and a half, Microsoft will be increasing the minimum user count from 500 to 1,000 seats. So if you're an existing customer, an EA customer, that has 999 users or less, you will be required to look into different ways to purchase your licensing. Microsoft hasn't really provided the specifics on that, what that transition will look like. However, if you are an EA customer and you need to start thinking about how you're going to make that transition, Cambay can definitely help you with that transition plan, give you direction on what will be best to meet your organization's needs, and then hopefully get you established in a new CSP licensing model. Currently, EA is a 3-year term. It is a signed agreement, and you do have a commitment each year when you sign the EA. And that commitment is based off of how many users, the products that you're buying for those users, your Office, your Windows OS, and your server environment. Right now, as I said, it's currently 500 users or devices, and you cannot go below that number. Once it's signed, that commitment is required for each year, unless it's cloud subscriptions, your Office 365 or M365. That will allow you to change those numbers up or down as long as it doesn't go below 500. Within the enterprise agreement, if you're buying on-prem product, license and software assurance is required. You cannot purchase license only on an EA. Okay, now we're getting into the fun stuff. So, licensing Windows Server and Azure. If you guys have started looking at Azure or currently using Azure, you know there are hundreds of different options that you can use within Azure. Some of the most popular is licensing Windows and SQL Server in Azure. However, with both of those options, sometimes it can get rather costly based off of the consumption. So Microsoft in the last 4 years has introduced a few ways to make it most cost effective for organizations that want to have their Windows or SQL Server in Azure. Two ways to license Windows in Azure. Built-in licensing for Windows Server, which means you just establish your environment for Windows Server in Azure. The licensing cost is part of the consumption price, and it's a pay-as-you-go model. However, that is the most expensive way as well. The other option for organizations that already have the Windows Server licensing and that licensing has active software assurance, you are then able to use what Microsoft calls the hybrid use benefits. It's a way to license the existence within Azure, the Windows existence within Azure, and only pay for for the data consumed. So you're not paying for the licensing within Azure. On average for Windows, you're saving about 25 to 30% year over year. So the hybrid use benefit is absolutely the best way to go if you already have that existing licensing and software assurance. And then for SQL Server, it's the same kind of concept. For hybrid use benefits, instead of paying for SQL Server licensing within Azure, you're going to use your existing license and software assurance for the licensing requirement within Azure. And the hybrid use benefit, excuse me, is different from the license mobility rights that comes with software assurance on SQL Server licensing. License mobility doesn't allow any different additional costs except for being able to have the ability to move your licensing from one server to another without that normal 90-day waiting period that Microsoft requires. So if you have a highly virtualized workload in Azure, the Enterprise SQL Server Enterprise Edition customers can get 4 cores in Azure in the general purpose SKU, so the normal everyday general purpose SKUs of SQL in Azure, for every core they own on premise. And that's for the highly virtualized applications. Okay, any questions so far? If you do, put them in the chat. Oh, and then I want to, before we go to questions, I wanted to point out some websites that I had pulled up for you guys.
Sure. So Stacy, there are a few questions from audiences.
Okay. Let's
so
go.
The first question is from Anthony. Anthony wants to know if Cambay is a global partner, where all do we have offices and locations? So Anthony, we are a global partner with 6 offices all across the US, in Houston, Dallas, California, New Jersey, North Carolina, and Ohio. We got 4 offices in India location and 1 office in Dubai location. Question to you, Stacy. Will MPSAs be grandfathered or definitely sunset?
So for MPSA, Microsoft has not announced anything yet. And with my Microsoft contacts that I have good relationship with, they have not heard anything internally as well. So my gut and my intuition from being in this world for so many years, MPSA will absolutely be sunsetted. What the replacement option will be is still what is uncertain and unknown and not announced yet. However, if you are on an MPSA and currently primarily on-prem licensing, although you might have hesitations of moving to the cloud, it's probably time to start thinking about a transition to the cloud. And the only reason I say that is as these programs are phased out and ultimately changed to a subscription-based option, to be cost-effective and to really, truly benefit the most from the Microsoft products, moving to a cloud subscription is going to be the best. I do feel that they'll keep some on-prem licensing, but it will be subscription-based, so nothing will be owned by you. It'd be a subscription, a right to use that product.
Thank you, Stacy. There is another question. If a company's EA user is below 1,000, will they get the price benefits similar to EA through CSP?
So yes, absolutely. So in 2018, Microsoft removed the additional volume licensing discount from level A on EAs and MPSA. So if you're currently at a level A, you are actually very almost same exact cost of products that you're getting on EA will be on CSP. And again, that was part of the gradual transition of moving EA customers more into a CSP type world, licensing world. So if you know, as a level A customer right now, and you're under 1,000 seats, as you transition or work on going to a CSP, anticipate that the pricing should be very similar.
Thank you, Stacy. There is another question. Does Azure Hybrid use benefit apply to downgraded servers, even though the software assurance is still active?
So, so to make sure I understand correctly, you're talking about you have licensing for Windows Server 2019, but you have 2018 installed. Is that how I'm understanding the question?
Yes.
Okay. So, yes, absolutely. The versions can be mirrored basically into Azure. So you still have the hybrid use benefit as long as there's active software assurance on that hybrid use benefit.
Okay, got it. If under a CSP, can you still use a direct Premier support or unified support, or you stuck with the VAR support offering?
No, absolutely. You can use, if you have a Premier support agreement and you want to maintain that, absolutely, you can use that. You can also use both. If it's you feel will be a quick fix or just a management issue within the CSP portal, my suggestion is to reach out to the VAR or the reseller. But otherwise, if you want to use your Premier support, you're more than welcome to. Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions right now, Alan?
Yeah, and as usual, do we receive the slide deck that we presented?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We will get that out to everybody. So I did want to go over, I have a few links, and it's in the slide deck as well, that kind of goes over the Windows and SQL Server hybrid use benefit. And also, one thing that I didn't have on the slide is talking about SQL Server reserved instances. It's yet another way to be able to save some money within Azure. As you can see here, let me go down to, I passed it. Hold on one second. Here it is. This is the Windows Server. It's just an idea, a visual to show you how much you could save potentially by using the Azure hybrid benefit. And here, this is the list price on Azure to pay for your Windows Server licensing. And this is a comparison if you use your existing license with SA licensing. So a big difference, almost 50% savings. So that's a huge difference. And then on here, on this website, again, the link will be provided in the presentation, is a calculator. This calculator will help you determine with the existing licensing and SA that you have, how much is it potentially going to save? And there's a tab for Windows Server, SQL Server VMs, and then SQL database. Okay?
Sure. Will you be sending this deck to participants? Yes. So early next week, you will have this deck and the recording from this webinar live on our website, where you can go and download it. And we will in fact send you an email with the recording link and the deck.
Yep, exactly. And here's just a visual on the licensing of the hybrid use benefit for SQL. And again, this link is also included. Okay. So we have about 5 minutes left. I'm happy for any more questions. Otherwise, I'll give you 5 minutes of your day back.
Sure. At this time, I don't see any questions, but just wanted to kind of quickly give an update on some of the upcoming webinars that we have. We have an upcoming webinar on 15th of December at 1 p.m. Central. That's around the Windows Virtual Desktop, how to migrate desktop workloads to Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop. That's the one. And we have another follow-up three-part webinar series. This is on January 21st at 1 p.m. Central. This is more around the data analysis with Microsoft Dynamics 365 customer insights. All this information is live on our website. Feel free to go and register, and we'll be more than happy to share this information with all of the people who have attended today. With this said, we don't see any questions. Stacy, thank you very much for this has been very insightful webinar. Thank you very much for covering all the topics. And thanks everyone for attending today's webinar. We will keep posting you on our follow-up webinars. Thanks everyone.